So now that the offseason is officially underway for the Ontario Hockey League, we won't be having a lot of news items to talk about. We are right now in the June trade window, but those trades will be every now and then between now and the end of the month, and then of course with other news leading up to training camp, it's going to spread things out when it comes to news items. So I wanted to do a team history video series, just looking at the 20 teams in the Ontario Hockey League, how they became where they are today, and just to see who the top scorers are in these organizations and some of the playoff moments that were key for these organizations over the last 25 years or so. And I thought it would be fitting to talk about the Saginaw Spirit first. They're the Memorial Cup champions of 2024. It's an organization that has had a steady build up for this organization. It was a very slow start. And then now hosting Memorial Cups, winning a title for the first time in franchise history is something to be proud of. And I thought, let's start things off in Central Michigan, talking about the Saginaw Spirit, who date back to 2002, 2003. That was their first season in the Ontario Hockey League after relocating from North Bay. And of course, the Centennials, a staple in Northern Ontario. It was a team that went all the way to the championship in 1994 and defeated the Detroit Junior Red Wings to go to the Memorial Cup. But that's the highlight for the Centennials. I'll probably do a Centennials video later on talking about that organization, but this focus is on Saginaw. They ended up moving to Central Michigan as the team wasn't profitable anymore in North Bay. So they sold the team to Dick Garber, who owned several car dealerships in the Saginaw area, and just bringing junior hockey to Central Michigan. And the team spirit, it came from a student, an elementary school student, who came up with the name. They had a name the team contest, and the Saginaw Spirit, they were born. And they also have some pretty deep roots in junior hockey. So they were in North Bay from 1982 to 2002. Before that, the Niagara Falls Flyers. That was from 1976 to 1982. And before that, they were in St. Catharines as the TPs and the Blackhawks and Falcons. That was from 1943 to 1976. So a lot of history with this franchise lineage dating back to some pretty big teams in St. Catharines. Those TPs winning some championships in their junior glory days. But for Saginaw, their top 10 scorers, I was a little surprised seeing Ryan McDonough. He led the way, 247 points, 118 goals, 129 assists. He holds the record for top scorer in Saginaw Spirit franchise history. Right behind him, Vincent Trocheck. He's a very popular name right now, playing, of course, in the National Hockey League with the New York Rangers. Trocheck, 94 goals, 146 assists, good for 240 points in his career with Saginaw. He was also traded near the end of his OHL career to the Plymouth Whalers, so there was a chance there that Trocheck would have become the highest scoring player in Saginaw Spirit history. Third in scoring, Cole Koski, 106 goals, 129 assists, 235 points. In fourth, Jack Combs, 95 goals, 134 assists in his OHL career, 229 points. Then you have Joshua Shayla. He's fifth in franchise scoring, 119 goals, 94 assists, 213 points. So close to 100 assists for Shayla. Number six, Jordan Schwartz. He had 82 goals in his OHL career with Saginaw, 122 assists, 204 points. Tom Pyatt, I know he was a fan favorite with the Saginaw Spirit when he played there. He had 94 goals, 106 assists, good for 200 points, right on. Number 8 overall is Damian Giroux, 101 goals, 93 assists, 194 points. Cole Perfetti, right now playing with the Winnipeg Jets. He is 9th overall in scoring in franchise history for the Saginaw Spirit, 74 goals, 111 assists, 185 points in total. And then Eric Locke rounds up the top 10 in scoring in franchise history, 83 goals, 101 assists, good for 184 points. When you look at goalie wins, the top 5, Jake Patterson, 82 wins. He leads the way for wins for a goaltender with the Saginaw Spirit. Then you have Evan Cormier, 77 wins to his credit. Ryan Daniels at 74. Eddie Pasquale, he had 67 wins. I thought he had more. I remember when Kitchener played Saginaw in the playoffs. That would have been, I believe, 2009, 2010, around there. Pasquale, he just seemed like a brick wall. Not much went through him, so that's why he's 4th overall in goalie wins in Saginaw Spirit history. And then 5th is Tristan Lennox. he had 59 wins with the Saginaw Spirit. So some really key contributors there for the Saginaw Spirit as this team was climbing up the ranks in the Western Conference. It was a team that took a while to get up to being a contender in the Western Conference. And then when you look at the retired numbers, they just have two retired numbers right now. Vincent Trocheck, his number 89, has been retired at the Dow Event Center. And also Brandon Sott, he had number 22. He had a really good junior career as well before going on to the NHL and winning his Stanley Cup. So it is great to see those two players being recognized. And then when you wonder, okay, how many players have graduated to the National Hockey League from the Saginaw Spirit organization? Well, at the time of recording, 26 players have gone on to play in the National Hockey League after representing the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL. So that number will continue to grow, especially after the Memorial Cup run, because a lot of those guys expect to see their names on the backs of NHL jerseys in the coming seasons. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few of them as early as next season. And the playoff history, I was going to include some of the North Bay history, but I'm going to save that for when I do a Centennials video. So their first year in Saginaw, 2003 playoffs, they ended up missing. Same can be said about 2004 and 2005. It wasn't until 2006 that the Saginaw Spirit finally made the postseason. And in that year, they were swept in the first round by the Guelph Storm. They wouldn't get out of the first round in 2007. They were knocked out in 6 games by the Greyhounds. The Greyhounds would do that again in 2008, except that was a 4-game sweep. And then 2009, that was the first year the Saginaw Spirit made it to the second round of the OHL playoffs, only to be swept by the London Knights in 4 games. 2010, this was the series I was talking about, Pasquale with the Saginaw Spirit. That ended up being a first-round defeat at the hands of the Kitchener Rangers in 6 games. So getting out of the first round of the playoffs was a struggle early on for Saginaw. So one first-round win in their first within their first decade. It wouldn't be until 2011 that they go back to the second round of the playoffs. That's where they lost in 6 games to the Windsor Spitfires. They would go to the second round of the playoffs again in 2012. They lost to London in 6 games in that series. So that's the trend. This Saginaw Spirit team, they were starting to get better. They were competing for their division. They would get home ice, win the first round, and then the second round just fall short. Those years too, London and Windsor were quite competitive. Of course, Windsor winning their 2 OHL championships in 2009 and 2010. And then in 2013, another first round exit, because with OHL hockey, it is a lot of cycles. So you have your years where you're competitive, you go on deep playoff runs, and then you go back into retooling and rebuilding. So that's what happened from 2013 all the way really to 2016. They lost to the first round in 2013 to London. Then in 2014, they lost in 5 to the Erie Otters. 2015, they were swept by the Sioux Greyhounds. And then 2016, swept by the Erie Otters. So after that run of first-round exits, they would miss the playoffs in 2017. So they did have a great streak of making the postseason. But then when they got back into the playoffs in 2018, it was a first-round exit at the hands of the Sioux Greyhounds in 4 games. But 2019, what a year that was for the Saginaw Spirit. They would go all the way to the Western Conference Final, their first trip to the third round of the postseason. They would play the Guelph Storm. However, the Guelph Storm would win that in 7 games. It was a nail-biter of a series. Saginaw put everything on the line. But that was a Guelph Storm team in 2019 that just would not be denied, as Guelph would go on to win the OHL championship that year. But still, it was a magical run for Saginaw, the city of Saginaw supporting the Spirit. It was quite the atmosphere at the Dow Event Center. And really, it was then that I think the fans really started to come out in droves. However, that would be cut short because, of course, in 2020, there would be no playoffs because of the pandemic. 2021 would also be canceled. So 2022 would be the next season that would get OHL hockey. And unfortunately, Saginaw would miss the playoffs in 2022. However, they would draft generational talent Michael Misa. So I guess it's not also all bad coming out of the pandemic years and missing the playoffs, because Michael Misa, of course, a big contributor as to the Saginaw Spirit getting that chance to host the Memorial Cup. And in 2023, they went all the way to the second round of the playoffs. They were swept by the Sarnia Sting that year. That was also the year we found out Saginaw would host the Memorial Cup, so they did sell off key pieces like Minchikov, who was sent off to the Ottawa 67s to recoup picks and younger talent, as they knew they were going to host Memorial Cup. So still able to go on to the second round is not too shabby. But then in 2024, they went all in at the OHL trade deadline, picking up players like Owen Beck and Jorian Donovan. They also got Braden Hache from the Barrie Colts before the season started. So you knew this was a Saginaw Spirit team that wanted to go in through the front door, something that hasn't been done for a Memorial Cup host since 2008. And they were so close. They went to their second Western Conference final, this time being defeated, of course, by the London Knights in 6 games. However, as the host, Saginaw would get the chance to play in the Memorial Cup, and they would, of course, just recently, late game heroics from Josh Bloom with just over 20 seconds left in the game would clinch the Saginaw Spirit their first championship in the Canadian Hockey League. And, you know, for this team, for the Saginaw Spirit, I think this is a great building block. We've been seeing them get chances over these last few playoff runs. 2019, 2024 are going to go down as very memorable seasons for the Saginaw team. But really, they've come such a long way. They've got such a great following now in Saginaw. Hosting the Memorial Cup, I believe it was $10 million was put into the Dow Event Center. So this is a facility that's been rejuvenated. I think this fan base, they know that this team's probably going to take a step back next year a bit. However, they still have Michael Misa. So we'll see what this team can do. Saginaw should make the playoffs next year. But the history of this team coming from North Bay, I know there was a lot of people who were disappointed that the Centennials were moving to Michigan. But this team has been embraced by the community in Central Michigan. It's taken them some time to understand junior hockey, being that there was only one team from Michigan in the OHL at the time. It was the Plymouth Whalers. So getting used to OHL hockey, and now they've got that great rivalry with the Flint Firebirds. It'll be great to see Flint and Saginaw maybe meet a few more times in the playoffs in the coming years. But still, it's the future, I think, is bright for the Saginaw Spirit as an organization. The Dow Event Center, one of the best to visit, especially for media. I always look forward to the Saginaw Plymouth trips because they know how to treat the media and NHL scouts with some amazing meals, and the notes, the game notes before the game, also very helpful going into a game. There's some teams that are kind of missing out on that when it comes to the media room and whatnot, but still, Saginaw, always a favorite. Great to see that they did a great job hosting the Memorial Cup. And it's going to be interesting to see where this team goes in the future. So that's how I see it from the booth. I know it's a pretty generic overview of the history of the Saginaw Spirit. I wasn't sure how much detail people would be interested in, but let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts on the Saginaw Spirit. If you're a Spirit fan, you must be pretty excited where your team's at right now. And let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts on this team going forward. So again, thank you very much for all your support. I'm going to continue this series looking at OHL teams and their history, and stay tuned for more of those videos, and we'll talk to you again soon.